Greetings, folks. My buddy Peter, who asked me to leave this review for him, also asked me if I would do a giveaway at the end of the video. Skip right to the end of the video if you want, and we're going to do a little contest where he's doing a giveaway. Basically, all you have to do is just share this video. He'll send you either an EPUB or a PDF copy of his book or whatever. He'll send you a free copy of the book, and he's hoping that you'll maybe leave him a review in doing so, and also spread a little love for my channel, because that's all I try to do here is help out my buddies. So bear with me while I get things together here and just stick it out through my crappy little intro, and we'll be right back, all right? Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome back to another episode of my book review channel. So it's been a long time since I've been on here, probably about 4 months maybe. The reason it's been a while is because there's been several deaths in the family. Patty and I were in the process of moving. The interesting thing about moving, though, is I had so many books that I didn't realize I have. I bet you a lot of you other bookophiles have the same issue, and I ended up just giving so many of them away because I was like, oh my God, I have so many. But it ended up taking 5 carloads. That means filling the back of Patty's car and the trunk of Patty's car. And we brought it to this nice used bookstore. They give away 3 books for every time you purchase a meal. So I thought that was a really cool place to donate the books. People can see authors they're not really that familiar with and give it a chance at 0 cost except for the price of a meal they're going to eat anyways. So I donated all my books to Books and Travelers off Route 84 in Union, Connecticut. If you're in the area, just pop in and maybe you can get a free book that I used to have on my shelves. With that said, I do most of my reading on the phone these days because I don't want to have another problem like that. I do understand that nothing really competes with the magic of an actual physical paperback or a hardcover, but boy, you can't really argue with the convenience of having a Kindle or a Nook on your phone or something like that. With that said, I picked up a copy of Children of Little Might by my buddy Peter de Hollander. Now, fully up front, just being honest with you guys, it was a YA, and I do love YAs. I don't read them all the time, but it is kind of cute to just read one once in a while and get a nice little idea of just how life used to be. And it's not exactly my cup of tea, but it was also a YA fantasy. So it mixed one of my least favorite genres, fantasy, with YA, which is something I don't read a lot of. With that said, I wanted to give it the fairest analysis I could because Peter's a buddy of mine. He writes for the same company I write for, Rhetoric Askew Publishing, and he was nice enough to donate a copy of his book to me for a fair review, and I'm going to give him one. I'll give him 2 little critiques at the end because I think that most of the writers that I deal with enjoy a little bit of a criticism. They don't want too much praise, or else they just feel like they're not really actually getting your honest opinion. So I will give an honest opinion at the end. But right now, I just want to dish out the praise, because it was a wonderful little book, and the thing I liked most about it was how deeply original it was. It was not deeply original as in a lot of fantasy tropes, like, for instance, let's take The Witch, the Lion, and the Wardrobe, right? Wonderful, wonderful series by Lewis, but it's one of the most best-selling fantasy books of all time, and it involves this group of kids that go into a wardrobe and go into Narnia, right? So that's where the whole series takes place, is in Narnia. Well, this book is a lot like a lot of those fantasy tropes where this young man is able to go into this abandoned house in his town and able to move in and out of different kinds of realities. So it's similar like that. And it's very difficult when you're dealing with fantasy to avoid things like that. A lot of times in fantasy, you're going to see dragons, you're going to see elves. We don't see that in this book, but he does tie in that fantasy trope where he's able to, the main character, Monty, is able to go in and out of these different realities through a portal. And this time the portal just so happens to be an abandoned house. But that was about the only thing that this book had in common with other fantasy novels. And again, I want to be fully upfront. I'm not a big fantasy reader, so it's very difficult for me to speak to that. Here's where things were different, though. In this case, the main character had autism. And as an autistic child, it was just interesting to see how just even doing little tiny things were very, very difficult for this kid. For example, at the very beginning, he accidentally broke a kid's arm while defending himself against this young man who used to be his friend. This led him to the principal's office. So here's another thing that I thought was kind of interesting. The principal was a decent guy. Other students liked him. Parents respected him. He just seemed like a pillar of the community. But as soon as the doors were shut and he was dealing directly with our main character, Monty, he changed. He became someone completely different. And he became kind of evil, to be honest with you. And the way he was talking to our main character is like, okay, this is interesting. So we already have our protagonist right in the very first scene. So what made it interesting? Because that's not really what's original about it. There's got to be an antagonist and a protagonist in so many different novels, and I get that. But it was the way the inner dialogue in our main character's head was going on, because all of it was in Monty's head and what was going on. So a lot of autistic people have this thing about them where they are kind of geniuses in certain areas, and they obsess over those certain areas. Well, this one, Monty seemed to have a thing for languages, and he just memorized so many different words and ways to say the same thing in so many different languages. So a lot of the inner dialogue going on in his head was just that. As a result, Monty's also unable to talk as much, which seems to infuriate the principal, this guy named Royal. His last name's Royal. And as we're going and going and going, Royal seems to just finish the conversation for Monty. So it seems to be a one-way conversation, but the way Peter does it is he makes it a two-way conversation using Monty's silence and using Royal to fill in those spaces. So I'm not giving away too much because a little later on we realize that Royal is from the other side of this portal in this other world that Monty is able to go into. So Royal is part of a royal family over there. So that was one of the things that I wanted to mention that kind of got me as it's like, oh, that's a little kind of felt like a little cheap to me. And I'm trying to be as fair to Peter as I can because I do like him and I like this book, but I also want you as the viewer to not think that I'm just praising everything over the moon, and then you read the book and go, well, wait a second, I thought that was kind of cheesy. Why didn't he point it out? So that's the thing is Royal. I didn't like that his last name is Royal, and he's a member of the royal family. So I thought that was kind of too convenient, I guess, or I think a little more thought could have been put into that. So that's the first one. We'll get to the second one a little bit later. Another interesting thing about this book is Monty is able to conjure up things into reality simply by wishing them. And that's something that happens with people in this other realm, in this other world. Some people have a really innate ability to do this. Some people can't do it at all. But those people usually find themselves in a position of power because they're usually using their magic to help. Well, the reason Royal, the principal, is really after Monty, or Montac as he sometimes calls him, is because he is one of the most powerful wish makers going. And if Royal can control him, Royal can overthrow his brother, who is the king in the other realm, and then take over the throne. So it was a pretty interesting way that Peter did it by making this kid who has these powers but lacks the ability to understand how to comprehend them and how to use them properly. And I thought that was a really good twist. And as I read throughout the book, that was the basic hook of the book. This autistic kid who had these serious powers that he could use towards the benefit of the entire world on the other side, but he lacked the ability to really understand what that meant or how to take advantage of his powers properly. So I thought that was really cool. This brings me to the other little complaint I wanted to bring up because, I don't want to just praise this book too high because that'll give people unrealistic expectations going into the book. You know what I mean? I want people to go in there with an open mind and go, okay, he did say there was a couple things. So that way if they see their own little flaws, they can go, all right, well, this guy was at least honest. With that said, the other issue I had with the book was the two kings wanted to come up with an agreement that could benefit the kingdom and keep them both happy, and the agreement was called a bro agreement. And I also thought that was a little like, really, Peter, a bro agreement? But then the more I thought about it, I was thinking, oh, well, it is a young adult fantasy, so he's not going to want to go too crazy with naming things. He's going to want to try to keep it a little bit youthful and playful and fun, and I think that's why he did it. So I think it might work for the audience you were going for, but me, as a grown adult, maybe that's why it didn't sit so well with me. But it didn't take away too much from the story because the idea was still there. There was the idea of an agreement between the two brothers, which led way to a betrayal, which led way to the ultimate climax of the book, which I won't give away. So there was three main characters in the book, right? We had Monty, and then we had this girlfriend of his, who we also realize is part of the royal family, not too much farther in the book. He calls her his paper girl. We also have this kid named Storm who's wheelchair bound, but also happens to be his best friend. Now, Storm doesn't have any superpowers other than his loyalty. And as such, like the things he says, because he's also very smart, comes from a place of absolute trust. Monty's actually able to use that trust to use his friend to confide in him in important issues, like about the girl who he loves, who Monty loves. So there was some really cool characterization in it. The girl, she's able to read minds. So as I said before, our main character Monty, he's often stuck in his own head. So that makes it difficult for him to communicate. Well, it's kind of helpful that Aislinn's able to read minds because she can see what he's thinking and kind of speak for him. But it also adds another little twist of drama to the book because Monty really likes this girl, which makes things difficult for him because he doesn't want her to read the things he's thinking about her. You know, how much he wants to kiss her and how much he wants to hold her hand and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of cute little youthful love in this book as well. So it adds that little boost of flavor to the novel, a little tiny bit of romance, but it's just sprinkled in between just to kind of add a little bit of cleverness to things. It's certainly not bogged down with any of it. But that's about all I got for my little review of his book. However, there's also a little contest if you've made it this far in the video. I would like you to consider picking up a copy of this book, and you can do so for free because he asked me to include this little contest where if you share this video and if you agree to leave an honest review either on Amazon or on Goodreads or BookBub, one of those platforms will do, he'll send you a free copy of his book, a Mobi or EPUB or even a PDF copy of it. He will send that to you. So, yeah, please consider just leaving an honest review, sharing this video, and I'll reach out to Peter, and I'll make sure that you get your free copy. You'd be helping me out, and you'd also be potentially getting yourself a free copy of his book as well. With that said, that's the end of this video. You guys could have tuned into any review video on the internet. For some reason, you decided to come on mine. I appreciate the hell out of you for it. All right, keep an eye out for Corpse Lily coming out April, May, something like that. And you all take care. Peace.